Hello, lovely people. This is Camila Cava Food Photography Podcast, a place where I interview talents in food photography industry to learn ins and outs to help you and myself grow a food photography career. In today's episode, I'm talking with a wonderful food blogger and photographer, Anna Wierzbinska, also known as Anna Banana. Anna manages a successful food blog. She photographs for many restaurants and brands and manages her own Instagram account with 35,000 followers. I had such a lovely conversation with Anna, and we dived into so many interesting topics like working with local brands and restaurants, shifting mindset during crisis, sponsored posts, building experience, and professionalizing business. She also shares some of her favorite books that helped her build a more professional food photography business. You can find the list of those books and podcast notes on my website. Alright, so without further ado, let's dive into the conversation with Anna. Hi, Anna. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
I'm very excited to speak to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself for the listeners that might not know you?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Anna. I'm originally from Poland, but I live and work in the UK as a food photographer and as a product photographer. I've been living in the UK for over 17 years now, and I've been doing photography for about 5 years as a full-time job, and yeah, loving it.
Awesome. And how did you decide to become a food photographer, food blogger?
So, I think it was just like a gradual process for me. I've always had a bit of an interest in photography ever since I can remember. But then a few years ago, I think back in 2014, I found really old DSLR camera that I had for years, and I just never used it. And I kind of slowly started thinking, maybe I should, discover what these old buttons are for, and started playing with it. And then I kind of discovered Instagram back in the day when it was very different back then. And I think I just saw loads of guys doing, food photos, and it was just so different back then. But I just thought, I really enjoy it, and then one thing led to another. I started learning more about the camera itself, and I've really enjoyed creating different recipes. I've always loved baking, so two kind of came together, and that's how it all started. So back then, I still had a full-time job, full-time my job in the office, which I absolutely hated.
Been there
um,
also. True.
yeah, so I was running a really big department in the accountancy practice, so it was very different. It was corporate environment, and I've been in it for over 6 years back then, but my heart just was not in it. And slowly, gradually, I started, taking more photos. I started learning more about photography itself. Then I decided, my friend said that, oh, you should really start a blog. So I did. And yeah, and ever since then, it was just like snowball effect, I guess. So one thing led to another, and I've learned more and more about photography. I started expanding it just, because food photography is lovely, and it's always going to
Yeah.
be like my passion. But I think naturally, you would know, naturally, you want to expand different areas and try different things.
Yeah.
So then, a little bit of lifestyle photography, a bit of product photography, and it's all just kind of started coming together. And yeah, and then here I am
Very
today.
clear. Yeah, awesome. And yeah, I have to say that your images, I think, are so gorgeous. So I
Oh,
was wondering,
thanks.
like, you're also
Likewise.
self, thank you. So you're also a self-taught food photographer, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could you share with us a little bit how you followed the learning path? Was it only just practicing and curiosity, or did you follow some
Mm,
courses, some books, some
mm.
influencers that helped you to become better?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I don't know where I would be without the internet. So obviously, you know, um, loads of loads of my learning curve. It's everything together really. It's the information you can find online. It's the books, it's the podcasts, it's different influencers and their blogs. But at the start, I think my first bit where I found most of the knowledge and where I learned the most was actually Food Blogger Pro. And I think back then, back in the day, there wasn't that many books. Well, there were, but the whole industry wasn't booming as much as it is now. And there was few books that helped me. I think one of them was called Plate to Pixel by Helen Dujardin. It's a really old book about how to take food photography. But it was like my first one where I can actually recall that, oh, yeah, when you're reading something and it clicks and you think, oh, gosh, that makes sense now. So this was
Mm-hmm.
my first kind of point with, well, that was my first learning curve, really. But Food Blogger Pro, blog, and the podcast back then as well. Um, and then I think through Instagram, I think I've started finding loads of different people that I've really been looking up to. They've been my heroes. They've been my, figures of authority that I've been always trying to look up to. One of them is obviously Rachel from Two Love Studio. I found her style, just the way she's teaching you and the way she's educating you is the easiest for me to follow. I'm a very visual person, and I'm a slow learner as well, so I hate technology. And it's a mutual thing as well. And I just found Rachel's style, and just, just the way she teaches you. I think it's obviously because she's got a background as a teacher as well. Just
Right.
I could relate to it so well, and I took up her Lightroom Magic course back in the day, and it was an eye opener for me. It changed. It was a complete game changer. Because as much as I kind of had the theory behind photography in my head, and I was trying to put it in practice, there was this big thing that was missing, and I think it
Mm-hmm.
was the editing part. I could never get the photos back then where I wanted them to be. um,
Yeah.
and taking her course was just a complete game changer for me. um, but there's so many different people and different resources. Like, I've listed few of them, to be honest, but um, I think there was a few books as well. There was a setting up successful photography business. It's a really
Yeah.
old book by Lisa Pritchard, and this book was a game changer for me as well, because there came a point when I just naturally, I think, progressed from being just like food blogger and taking photos of my food for fun and putting them on my blog and my website and Instagram. But then I think you want more and you want to take it more seriously, and
Yeah.
the clients are starting coming through, and you're getting these inquiries from people and the brands coming, and you kind of want to make it look a little bit more professional. And I think it was this transition from just like being just a blogger for fun, and then actually thinking, well, I think I actually want to make it my full-time
Mm-hmm.
job. And this book is just full of great tips of how to do this transition and how to actually
Mm-hmm.
set up yourself as a photography business. So, back then I didn't know about things like copyrights for your images or
Mm-hmm.
licenses and all of this. And this book is just like a well of knowledge, and it's still very relevant despite the fact it was written
Awesome.
quite a few years ago. So yeah, that was another source for me. But mainly I think it's also like, following loads of people through Instagram, finding their blogs. So people like Bella from Fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
and Alana from the Bourgeon Gourmet. And I think it's just, you're coming across these people, and you learn, you look at what they do, you kind of trying, you're practicing, you're playing with your scene, and you kind of try to take on board all of that advice from the other photographers and bloggers. And it's just, there's just so much information out there today.
Definitely,
um,
definitely.
it's all there, if you're willing to do the research and you're willing to spend a bit of time on it.
Yeah.
The information is out there. But I think, yeah, for me, the main resources was probably Rachel, Two Love Studios, and actually Joannie from the Bite Shot as well. I
Oh
know
yeah,
she
she has
only kind
great
of
videos.
merged a few years ago, 2, 3 years ago, but she's been just like sensation within the industry.
Yeah.
And her willingness just to share the knowledge, it was very refreshing, because nobody really shared back then all the technical side of things. And I think she was the
Yeah.
person who like jumped on it, and we all literally followed along, and it was great. So yeah, it's still a learning curve. I mean, I'm still learning,
Oh
and
yes,
I always
definitely.
will be, because it's just one of these things. You never know everything, and the technology changes so quickly as
No,
well.
certainly, yeah.
You have to keep following and learning all these new
Yeah.
things. Just when you thought I've got it, I finally know what I'm doing here, something new comes in, and you're like,
Yep,
let's
yep,
learn something new. So yeah,
precisely.
my main, I guess, tutors
Awesome.
were online, and it was Rachel, it was Joannie, and just some other bloggers that I look up to. And
Awesome.
yeah, and the books.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. That's really cool. And you mentioned that one of the books helped you to step to a more professional role as a food photographer. What would you say, like the biggest takeaways were there, or how did you professionalize your business?
I think there are two sides to what I do. You've got the blogging side, um, which is still a big part of my business, and it still brings loads of income.
Mm-hmm.
But then there is another side, which is just photography side. And um, I think with photography side, obviously blogging is more like, fun. It's a little bit more relaxed. With the photography side and your photography clients, it's a little bit more professional. And I don't know, I found it quite natural. It came to me very naturally to pitch to brands, to reach out to my local pubs, local restaurants, and local small businesses, and connect with them, and just introduce myself, who I am, what I do, what I can do for them to help them. And I kind of find it very easy, actually, to this
Right.
part of the business. So
Uh-huh.
this part, just to like, come out there, put yourself out there, introduce yourself,
Mm-hmm.
make the connections. And then I was quite lucky, because most of my clients kind of found me, if that makes sense. So I've
Right.
never I've never really, I don't know, I kind of lost myself in what was the question.
Ah, like professionalizing your photography business, because you mentioned that you, after reading the book, kind of jumped from being only a food
Yeah,
blogger to actually professionalizing yourself as a food photographer. And you
yeah,
mentioned things like copywriting, licensing. So I was just
yeah.
wondering, is that something that you do right now as well? Do you do charge license fees?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it depends obviously on the project and who is the client, and what what they need, because each project, each collaboration is very different. And if I do, if I do just a photography for someone, there are certain things that I always establish with the client up front. So things like, what are the images are going to be used for? Is it online? Is it for the print? Um, how long they are planning on using these images for? How many images they're looking for? Um, Things like, copyrights or licensing of your images. And
Hmm.
I wouldn't necessarily have that knowledge if it wasn't for the books that I've read, or for advice from the fellow photographers. So, you're obviously building a network alongside of building your business. And to be honest, most of the people I've met within the industry is through Instagram community.
Yeah.
Um, and I've connected with loads of photographers based in the UK. And it was just through an exchange of advice and, what are other professional photographers do, that I've learned what I should be doing as well. So
Yeah.
I think it was, loads of loads of the people I've connected with have been doing it for much longer than I have. And they were kind enough to share their knowledge with me. And there is a couple of people out there who I know are always there to help me as well. So I know if I've got a question related to photography side of my business only, or maybe technical question, or maybe something about copyright or pricing, I know I can give them a call and speak to them, and they will be able to
Hmm.
advise me on it. So um, I think it's important to build these relationships, because sooner or later you're gonna need to reach out, and you're gonna have to ask how somebody else is doing it as well. So I think networking is a great way of doing it.
Certainly.
But yeah, I think the more you read, the more you do it, you obviously expand your knowledge as
You
you
learn.
go.
Yeah.
But loads of it's just all comes with the experience as well, I think. So you become more comfortable and more natural with what you do. Um, but as I said, it's still a learning curve for me as well. And some things I'm still like, oh, how should I do that? So
Yeah.
I know who I can ask. I can ask so and so. So yeah, it's all about building these relationships and just constantly
Networking.
expanding your knowledge, I think.
Certainly. Interesting. And well, you were talking a lot about reaching out to the clients, and that a
Mm,
lot of clients did find you. But do you
yeah.
indeed still do the pitches to the brands and the clients, or do you wait for the clients to find you mostly?
Um, I don't. To answer it shortly, I don't pitch anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
I did, and it depends really. If I've got loads of work, if I've got loads of projects going on, I won't necessarily pitch to the brands or to the clients, because I know I've got steady income coming in. I've got enough projects to keep me busy as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my clients, as I said earlier, I've been lucky enough that most of the clients have actually found me. It's either
Right.
through Instagram or through the word of mouth as well. So um, I'm quite lucky that the area that I live in, there's loads of like local community in here. So
That's nice.
there's loads of small businesses, there's loads of small little pubs and cafes and restaurants, and loads of people know each other. So I think I'm quite lucky with this, that through the word of mouth, I've got a little group of clients just from
Community.
my
That's so
area,
nice.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
that I can operate within. But don't get me wrong, like at the start when I was just beginning, um, I was pitching to brands, I was sending emails, I was looking for contacts, I was doing my research, and obviously going out of my way to find the clients, because obviously we all have to start somewhere. At the beginning, it's not like I had 20 clients that I was working with. I had nobody. Um, but I think, there's nothing wrong with pitching to brands. I think it's a great way of putting yourself out there and introducing yourself. And even if initially nothing comes out of it,
Yeah.
nobody says that in the future they won't reach out.
No, definitely. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think we live in a sort of strange times, and I
Yeah.
think
Right
at the
now, yeah.
moment this industry's changing so much, like constantly, especially now. But um, just putting the current climate aside, um, I think brands are reaching out more rather than the other way around, if you know what I mean. I think it's probably mainly through like, the revolution that came with
Yeah.
Instagram, and anyone who's got a
Yeah.
DSLR camera nowadays can be can be monetizing it in a way, if that makes sense. And I think,
Certainly.
it's good to reach out. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great to be pitching to brands, especially if you're just starting out.
Yeah.
I think it's a great way of putting yourself out there. But for myself personally, I think I'm at the point where luckily I don't have to do it anymore.
No, yeah. Same here actually, mostly. I'm
Yeah,
happy.
that's
But
good.
that's how I started too. Yeah,
Yeah,
writing never endless
yeah,
swarms of emails to lots of restaurants and brands and everything. Yeah.
yeah. And did you concentrate, just out of interest, did you concentrate on just like your local businesses, or did you reach out to somebody like, I don't know, national brands, or do you know what I mean?
No, in the beginning, it was local, and it was not even brands as much as restaurants. That was my start, and
Yeah,
then slowly I switched more towards working with the brands. But in the beginning, it was easiest to access restaurants.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree. I did the very similar thing a couple of years ago, I think. Was either 2 or 3 years ago, when I thought, okay, I'm comfortable with my photography now. I'm
yeah,
comfortable with my blog now. I know what I'm doing, kind of. Um, and this was this point when I actually wanted to expand my horizons a little bit, because you do get stuck in a route, right? Like if you just keep doing the same thing, it gets very
yeah.
repetitive, and it's just a matter of time until you get bored with with yourself and your own photography. So I think I've watched a webinar from Broma Bakery. I've signed up to one of her webinars where she was talking about pitching to restaurants and
Hmm.
um, how to work with your local restaurants. And I thought, oh, what the heck, I'm gonna give it a go. And I just sent a bunch of emails to the restaurants just around my area, um, saying, and back then I was just offering them some photography, in exchange purely for me coming in there and having an experience of taking photos for them, so just for
Yeah,
the purpose of me expanding my portfolio. And so many of them came back. Like I was genuinely surprised. Obviously, they had something out of it because they could use the photos I would take for them for their socials or websites or whatever, and I would be able to expand my portfolio and
yeah.
the knowledge really.
It's a
And this is
win-win.
how it started as well, because
Yeah,
quite few of them from this little project of mine, quite few of them have become the regular clients since then.
same
So,
here. Same here.
so
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's definitely worth reaching out. Um, if you're trying to build your client base, then obviously,
for
yeah,
sure.
do it. Reach out, and you will be surprised
For
what
sure.
how much good can come out of it.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And then I was wondering, out of curiosity,
Mm.
how many clients do you usually have? Let's say I know it's super well, at least for me, it's always up and down and up and
Yeah.
down going. It's very unstable. But just out of curiosity, approximately how many per month do you get in assignments for?
I would say probably on average there's about 5 monthly projects that I
Hmm.
do, but it depends. Obviously, currently it's a
Yeah.
very different situation. But
Yep.
luckily, actually, it is picking up now, so it
Yeah.
is good. Yeah, it
Nice.
is. Um, I would say on average about five, but it depends
Mhm.
because I'm sure, as you are aware, there is a big chunk of our work that is very seasonal.
Oh
So
yeah.
what I mean by that is, in January you've got health trends and all the vegan stuff that comes in. February it's Valentine's, March time, March, April, it's Easter related content. Then,
Yep.
it's all very seasonal. Then we've got obviously Halloween and Christmas. And
Yeah.
so there are peak times, in which, like, I remember last December, it was just crazy.
December was crazy
The-
for me also. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
I think, like, it starts from November, and then all the way up to Christmas, it was just non-stop, non-stop.
Yeah.
So every 2 or 3 days, it was a different project for a different client, and it's
Sick.
obviously great for the financial side of things. But it is a non-stop. um, but I would say probably no. At the moment, I've got three regular clients, so I work with them monthly,
Nice.
and yeah, and it's just any ad hoc that comes in my way that
Mm-hmm.
obviously time permitting, and depending on the project. But I would say probably on average there's about 5 projects going on.
Awesome.
So yeah, always keeps me busy, which is
That's
nice.
good. And regular clients is also a very good thing.
Yeah.
How do you establish that kind of a relationship? What kind of
Um,
client would be the one that would need a regular content?
so
And
I
is that
give
like
you
a
an
monthly?
example. Yeah, I give you an example. One of them is actually a very big chain of hotels. So last year,
Oh,
I was approached by, it's again because of the location that I'm in. I'm very lucky where I am. I'm in the middle of Hampshire countryside in the UK, which is very picturesque. It's a lovely place to live. It's a lovely place to be. But just around the corner, there's a Four Seasons hotel, which is obviously a very well known brand across the world.
yeah.
And I was still pinching myself a little bit. And I was very lucky last year they've approached me. Um, and yeah, we just started working together. They approached me, so I'm creating a content for these guys on a monthly basis. And yeah, and any ad hoc work or photography that they do need. So
Awesome.
that was done through, again, this came out as a back of a networking I've done about 4 years ago. So there was a small group of networking. There's a group of small businesses within my area, and they do these networking events once every 2 to 3 months. And I just found out through a friend about one of these events, and she said, "Oh, why don't we go and see what it's all about?" So we went there, and actually, it was held in this very hotel.
Right.
Um, and so I met few of the members of the team of the hotel. So they were people who actually deal with PR and event managers and so on. And we exchanged the business cards, we exchanged the contacts, and I didn't hear anything for 2 years. And then last year, just, an email came
Stick.
through from them saying, "Oh, hey, by the way, would you like to meet up and discuss potential opportunities that we can, collaborate together on?" So
Wow.
that was very unexpected. But yeah, that came through, and we built a relationship where now we work, um, we collaborate together. We are regularly um, doing different projects together. And also, I've got another regular client, well, two more. They are local businesses. They are very local to me. It's people who run their own small businesses. One is a boutique shop. The other one is a online shop. And they both sell very different products. But I do a bit of a product photography for them, and I do a bit of a social media management for them as well. So I just help them with the
Oh, nice.
Instagram accounts. Um, but again, these actually came to me through word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody recommended me, and that's how it happened. So again, I didn't necessarily reach out to them. I knew of them. I knew them as my local, businesses. I knew who they are, what they do. But luckily, they reached out to me before I did to them. So yeah, and yeah, I think it's
That's good.
important among all the projects that you do. I think having the regular clients is really what you want,
Yeah.
because let's be honest, we're not doing it for love. So I mean, as much as I love photography, it's it's also my livelihood. So this is what I
Yeah.
do for a living. So um, it's great because these regular customers are a steady stream of income. You can count on them, and they're coming in on a monthly basis or 2 monthly or however often they are. While with all the other collaborations, it's as and when they come, so you don't know
Yeah.
who's going to reach out to you. But with these regular customers,
Stable income.
yeah, exactly. So
Mm.
I think these are the relationships you want to continue
Yeah,
having. You want to look after them, you want to nourish them as much as
perfect.
possible.
Yeah, definitely. I
Mm.
agree. Oh, that's a really good one, I think.
How about you? Do you have like most of your clients are regular clients as well that you do on a monthly basis, or?
Not as often as monthly basis. I don't have ones that need content that often. That's why I was very curious about it.
Mm,
But I
mm.
have I have regulars that I do couple of months in
Yeah, and is it
between, kind
restaurants
of.
mainly?
With this, no, actually not. It's brands. With restaurants, it's even more seasonal. I have
Mm-hmm.
indeed couple them, but they need, I don't know, every 3 months, every 4 months. More like when they change, like from spring menu to winter
Yeah,
menu to,
yeah, I've got few.
yeah. So it's
Yeah.
even less. But I know a lot of restaurants that actually do, and I know some photographers that do also monthly content and even
Mm,
managing social media. But since I
yeah,
don't do social media management, it's not something I got as an assignment yet.
yeah.
No. So I was
I
very
think it's
curious
also
if you do
it's very
them.
different. Everyone is very different, you know. I think it's also what you feel comfortable with, because there are certain photographers that I know that will do just photography, and that's all what they do. I kind of I like to do loads of different things, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah.
enjoy having loads of different things to keep me occupied. And I'm trying also at the moment, especially because of the current climate, to be honest. I think we all have to shift our minds a little bit and try to adjust to the new situation. And at the moment, I'm trying to get a little bit more into helping people with their websites as well. So as much
Right.
as I hate technology, I think I know a few things. So during the last few years, I've learned a few things along the way, and I'm happy to share that knowledge and help others to get where they need to be as well. So I'm trying to dip my toe a little bit into website design and help my clients who actually are my photography clients, help
Right.
them with this side of the social media or the
And how do you
websites as
let them
well.
know that you do that as well? Do you like write them an
Um,
email? Do you pitch that, hey, I also do?
yeah, I mean, it differs. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm a pro with website design. But I do normally say when I meet up with the client that, if they also looking for any help with the social media, so maybe if they want to know how to manage it properly, or they need help with designing the grid, or they need a bit more help with gaining more followers, or write their captions, or what hashtags to use, I'm happy to help with that. And I also always mention that, aside of photography, I can also help you with the technical side of your website if needed to be.
Right.
So sometimes, sometimes nothing comes out of it because they say, oh no, I've got somebody who manages this site for me already, or I do it myself. And so that's all great. But there's quite a loads of, especially small businesses, that I think quite often need help with the
Mm-hmm.
technical side of things as well. So occasionally I do that as well.
Awesome.
I think it's, with the current situation as well. Um, I know few photographers who, just when the crisis started, the whole thing with the coronavirus, because especially the food industry has been hit so badly. I think, I'm sure you've seen it as well. Quite a few photographers, the way they shifted and how quickly they jumped on it, saying like, if you are a small business, I'm happy to help you with, like, any photography you may need for your takeaway menus,
Yeah,
or
I've seen. Yeah.
takeout, or any product photography, because we all have to shift our mindset at the moment. So quite loads of people, I think, at the moment as well. What I'm trying to do is offer just a bit of work for free. So, if there's a small local business,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great way to potentially start a relationships with anyone in
Right.
your
Build a
area,
network.
or yeah, build a
Mm-hmm.
network. So I think, reaching out to these small businesses and maybe offering to do a little bit of work for free for them, or just as a,
Mm-hmm.
helping hand. maybe some basic few photos or a little photo session for them. And you never know, it may turn into a long lasting relationship moving forward. So as
True.
much as it's horrible and this whole situation, I think, we all trying to find ourselves in this new climate. I think there's
Yeah.
also loads of opportunities there. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about constantly adjusting and just trying to find these opportunities, I guess.
Makes sense. Yeah, true. And
Mm.
I've also seen their interesting thing there. One of the food photographers also offer to capture, let's say, help the small businesses that are in ceramics, let's say, to capture their ceramics. And at the same time, it's a win-win situation because you get new ceramics for your collection. And at the
Yeah,
same time, you give pictures for free for the makers.
exactly. Yeah. So I think, yeah, you scratch my back, I scratch yours back. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of,
precisely.
yeah,
Supporting each other.
mutual, yeah, benefit. And yeah, I think, a very long time ago when I was just starting out, somebody said to me that the best advice they can give to someone is concentrate on your local community. And as cheesy as it sounds, it's very true, especially in my case, because if you build a network with all these little businesses and people around you, and um, you you can kind of rely on them, they can rely on you, and you always, I don't know, I feel like, there's always something happening, and because it's so local and people are um all in it together. So like all these small businesses, it's just if you help someone, I think good karma will come back to you, and
Yeah.
eventually something good will come out of it.
Actually, here a question raises in my head. If it's very local, isn't it difficult to charge them a price that pays enough for your time?
um no, I wouldn't say so. I think again, it depends on the client, because if it's a local small business, let's say if it's a local boutique shop that they're just looking for some product photography for their clothing range or homeware range of candles, um, it's going to be very different rather than charging a big chain of hotels for the bit of work you do for them, if you know what I mean. So it
Yeah.
all depends on the brand, and it's obviously very personal choice how you're gonna price it. But
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that just because they're local you would struggle with pricing it. Not in my case. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe the other photographers do, but um, I don't personally find that to be the case.
Okay. And do you charge these local, let's say, brands licensing fee as well? Or is this something then you just
It,
scrap away?
um, um, I don't know. In case of
Mhm.
these local businesses, I don't charge them the licensing fee. I think this is more for big names and big brands. So if it's a project where, let's say, a brand contacts me and say they want me to use their product, let's just say for an example, they want me to use the product for a recipe creation, and they want me to create the photos with that product, and they don't want me to share it anywhere. It's not like I need to post it on my social media. They purely just want the product um, to be used in the photos. um, then obviously the first thing I do is I always establish what they're going to use this image for. So where that image is going to appear, because again, based on the experience and the knowledge I gain over the years, I think you do learn that, oh, if a big brand approaches me, they can use this photo in so many different ways. They can use it on a huge billboards in the middle of the town center, or they can use it in a magazine that they're gonna sell millions of copies of, or they can use it on a product packaging that they
Yeah.
sell millions of as well. So you obviously need to think about that a little bit. And, if it's a brand of Coca-Cola, just for an example, it's not a small local business who cannot afford to pay the right price for your photography.
Yeah.
So I think you need to establish from the start what they're actually going to use that image for and be very clear. Um, and then take it from there. So obviously, if it's an if it's just for online purposes and they're only going to use it for their social media or on their website, just as a, let's say, featuring some recipes, then I will look at it differently, as if they were told me that they're going to use it in print, or maybe they're going to use it on their menus all over the country, or so it's just establishing what actually that image is going to be used for exactly, and then taking it
Mm-hmm.
from there. But the licensing fees and the copyrights, I would say I only use it if it's a very specific client who only requires photography of the product, and if it's like a well-known, well-established brand.
Right.
Um, but I don't charge license fees or copyrights for my regular clients or for the local businesses. It's not something I do.
Right. Makes sense, to be
Mm.
honest.
How about
Right.
you? Do you charge the licensing fee and copyrights for the work you do?
Right now, not really. I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to start doing that, but it's
Yeah.
really hard because when I calculate the time that I would take on a project and the price comes out, it's
Mm-hmm.
already pretty high price that is already
Yeah.
pretty difficult to already negotiate. But I can't even
Yeah, I
imagine
agree.
putting it, although I do leave a percentage that I put on top of my price as for negotiation gap, which could be
Yeah.
kind of count as kind
Yeah.
of a
Always
license
always
fee.
start high. Always start high because you
Yeah,
know it's
I
gonna go
always do
lower.
that. I always do that. I always put the percentage on top to
Yeah.
because
I
we
think
always
this is
negotiate.
what was so great about Lisa Pritchard's book, setting up a successful photography business, because in this book she does lists all these things that you need to take consideration when you're doing your pricing for a client, because sometimes you won't necessarily think about it, like
Hmm.
your production fees or any of your expenses, or maybe you need to hire some people to help you with your shoot, or you need to take all these things into consideration when you're actually doing just the pricing part of your project. And then on top of that, you need to add your copyright fees, which they can be astronomical if you're talking about worldwide
Yeah,
copyrights usage. That's why, within the industry, photographers would normally say you don't really sell copyrights to your images, because nowadays it just doesn't work. It doesn't calculate. It's much better to license an image, let's say for a period of 12 months, where a brand can use it as often as they want for whatever purposes they want.
yeah,
um, but yeah, I think this is why this book was so eye-opening to me, because it actually made me realize that there is this whole other side to photography business that I didn't know. I was just happy going nuts, just happy snapping with my camera, where actually you need to think about all this other side of, oh my gosh, actually I should be charging it.
damn,
And
I'm very curious about that book now. I
yeah,
am so
no,
gonna
I
take a look.
really, it's not even that big, it's a quite thin book.
Uh-huh.
Which is great as well.
Nice.
But no, like seriously, it's full of great advice, and it's a fellow
Hmm.
photographer who actually recommended to me. It's somebody who, at the start of my journey, was a little bit like a mentor for me. I knew I can always speak to him, and he would be full of very helpful advice, because it was the time when I was actually not transitioning, but transforming from just like blogging photography and collaborations with brands for like just blogging side, transitioning a little bit into more of commercial photography, I guess.
Right.
So if you're leaning towards this side of the spectrum, and you're thinking of taking up more of the commercial projects, I think it's a great place to expand your knowledge on all of these things. And And he actually recommended this book to me because back then I did not have a clue about copyrights. I had a brand who reached out to me, and it was an American brand, and they wanted to know how much I would charge for the copyrights for the images, and
Mhm.
I did not have a clue where to even start with this. There is a little bit of information online, but it wasn't really sufficient for me. So luckily, again, through Instagram community, I knew of this person who is a commercial photographer. He's been within the industry for many, many years, and he's specializing in the restaurant photography.
Mhm.
And yeah, he was very helpful, and he recommended this book to me, and yeah, it was a great eye opener because I think, I've reached out to a couple of photographers that back then I was looking up to a lot. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, they were not that helpful when it came to sharing an information with me. So I just kind of, you
Yeah.
know, I just left it at that, and I didn't persist with my questions because you know when somebody just doesn't want to
Yeah. Yeah.
share
Yeah.
that information with you, which is fine. Everyone is different. No hard
Yeah.
feelings. But yeah, he was very helpful. He recommended that book to me. I got that within a couple of days. I've read the book, and I was like, right, I know exactly what I need to do. So I've written down my own contract, my own terms and conditions that I
Nice.
now attach to every single project, and every single pricing that I give to the client. There's always my terms and conditions as well. I think it doesn't matter if it's a very small job, if it's a small project, or if it's a big project. I think it also makes you look much more professional, if you've
True.
got your own terms and conditions, and you know exactly how to price yourself. So yeah, it all depends on the project, but obviously the bigger the client, the bigger the price.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Okay, the last question, again, out of
Mm.
curiosity, because I'm very curious. What would you say percentage-wise of your income comes from the your blog, so like sponsored, let's say, posts and
Hmm.
everything, versus food photography as of client food
Um,
photography?
I would say it's probably about 50-50, to be honest.
Sick.
At the moment, purely because of, the situation we are in at the moment, I think the photography side is the majority of the income. Um, but in a normal circumstances, I think it's kind of 50-50. There's a
Mm.
loads of there's a loads of work that I do with brands, especially supermarkets, or just little businesses that are just emerging into the surface. But there is also, as I mentioned earlier, because I've got regular clients who I work with like on a monthly or 2 monthly basis. So that is always coming through as well. So yeah, I would say about 50-50.
Awesome. Cool.
Mm.
I was
At the
very curious.
beginning, when I was starting out, it was all through the blogging side.
Yeah.
So any kind of income that I would make was purely from collaborations with the brands. They would either want me to feature their product on my blog
Hmm.
and my social channels, um, and yeah, all of the income was just from there. But with time, more and more um, businesses or clients started reaching out, and then you building this side of things as well. So it's kind of 50-50. As I always
Nice.
say, it's good not to put all of your eggs in a one basket, so it's
That's also
always
true.
good to have
Yeah.
loads of little sources of income.
Yeah.
Another thing is like you can obviously do um, stock photography as well. I did it for some time. I'm not doing it anymore. I found it not worth. In my case, it was just peanuts that I would get from the stock photography, and I just
Hmm.
found the whole process a little bit long-winded, and But
Yeah.
I know a bunch of photographers who are having a great side income just from the stock photography.
Hmm.
So this is also something worth to look into or to expand if you are a photographer and looking for an extra sources.
Also true, especially right now. Yeah.
Do you do stock photography?
I tried, like I did on 500 pixels, so like Getty
Yeah,
Images, but
yeah,
it's like you get 50 cents out of I don't know, 50
yeah,
euros that they send my image for. I got mad, so I decided not to do it. I felt
yeah.
so, yeah, because they sell the image for about what, $50, and then you get 50 cents out of it or so. It seemed like.
Exactly. Yeah.
I got very pissed, and then I took out my images.
Yeah, I did exactly the same. I signed up, I think, with two different agencies that a fellow blogger or photographer recommended and submitted a bunch of images. And then I remember logging in, like, because I completely forgot about it. And then somebody reported to me through my Instagram saying, Anna, I think this is your photo they're using. And I completely forgot that I submitted it through the stock agency. And I reach out to that person saying, like, it's fine if you're using my photo, but at least some credit will be nice. And they replied back saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but we actually bought that through the stock photography agency." And I was like, "Oh,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
remember now." But yeah, it was, I've submitted so many photos, and I think I logged in 2 months later, and it was like 30 pence or something
Yeah.
like that.
It's
So it's just it didn't work in my case. But as I said, I know at least a couple of people who I know are making a very steady income from stock
Yeah, it
photography.
can be a good game if you put a lot of attention to that. I mean, if you make the images that
Yeah.
really work, like for Easter, for Christmas, or whatever, but
Mm,
you do have to put your time in it. And I feel like if I concentrate on that instead of concentrating on clients, I also kind of lose that my image can be bought for cheaply versus,
yeah.
actually selling my images straight to the clients. I feel like my value kind of drops if I do that. I
Yeah,
don't know if that's
absolutely.
true or not, but that's what
No,
I feel.
I think it is, and I know loads of photographers have got a very different approach to the stock photography, and they saying, oh, it's just a very quick, you don't need to faff around with the whole setup, and you don't need to really style anything because it's just a very straightforward. You've got a product, whatever it is, an apple or banana or whatever. And you just take a photo of it, in loads of different angles and things. But yeah, yeah, it didn't work in my case.
Here, not either. Uh,
Yeah.
Okay, Anna, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
hold you even longer.
Oh, no, that's fine.
This was a really fun conversation. I could listen and listen to you all day long, really.
Oh, thanks.
Um, but yeah. Okay, one more question, last one.
Go on.
Okay, last one. Um, I also was wondering when you have like sponsored posts and you put that on Instagram,
Hmm.
doesn't your engagement go down? Because every time I say, like, I don't really have sponsored posts because I'm not as
Hmm.
much as influencer, but I photograph brands, and every time I
Hmm.
put like the client work that I'm proud of, but you can see the
Hmm.
brand name in it, my engagement goes just completely down because they see the brand and they're like, my audience like
Yeah.
puts this shield over. I
Yeah.
don't know
I know
how
what you
do
mean. I
you
know what you mean.
manage that.
Um, a little bit, yes, but it depends really. I think it depends on what it is as well. And sometimes it's just, especially when it comes to Instagram, you just never know. Sometimes the photo that you're gonna put out there that you think, oh my God, I don't even know, should I be putting it out there? And it's gonna do great. It's like, oh my God, it's getting thousands of likes and the reach is amazing and interaction with it is fantastic. And sometimes you think, I nailed this photo, this is it, this is bee's knees. And you put it out there and it's like crickets. It's like, well,
Yeah.
where's my audience? So I think it's very different. You never know with Instagram. Like, I think it's important to learn what your audience reacts to well and what they
Right.
engage with the most. But I agree with you. Sometimes if I put the sponsored content, out there, or the work I've done for the client and I post it on Instagram, it may not do as well as a photo of chocolate cake, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But mind you, like I had a very successful campaigns that I've sponsored campaigns that had a great reach, and the audience engaged with them in a great way, and they had loads of likes, thousands of likes,
Nice.
and it was a sponsored post. um so I think it just depends really. Like
Right.
with Instagram, it's very hard to say, because of obviously you
Mhm.
never know what algorithm is going to favor. There are certain things that I know my audience always going to react well to. um, so perhaps when I do a sponsored campaign, I try to bear that in mind as well. If a brand, let's say, is giving me a free hand in what I actually want to create, then I would think first about what the audience actually likes and what they always respond to well. And
Mhm.
maybe I would go with chocolate cake just because I know it's gonna be received very well.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes you want to be just creative and you want maybe do something else that may not necessarily be well received, but still, I think as a photographer, you want to expand your own knowledge and your set of skills. And if you just keep doing what you've always been doing, you never learn and progress and discover the other things. So I learned a very long time ago not to let Instagram get into your head, or the amount of likes you
Yeah.
get under the photo. It doesn't mean anything really. Like in a long term and in a scale of things, it doesn't matter. All what I want to do is have fun with my creative process. I want to do what I want to do, and if somebody doesn't like it, well, tough.
Yeah.
You cannot please everyone, but sponsored content does seem always to have a lower, not always, it does on most of the occasions. I think it's always slightly lower with the engagement, although it doesn't mean it's always the case, because as I said, I had a very successful sponsored
Mhm.
campaigns that were received better than my normal posts. So it's just
Sick. Yeah.
hard to tell with Instagram. But there's always this element when you do a sponsored work that I think loads of people think, oh, this is sponsored, like, oh, he or she sold herself or sold
Yeah.
her soul. Um,
Yeah.
but on the flip side, like, well, you have to make money from something, like I need to be able to afford to buy my equipment and to,
Yeah.
invest in my business and in myself. And I cannot do it unless I do a little bit of a sponsored work as well. So I always try to support my, community or people who I connected with, or my group of, Instagram friends, and I'm always kind of looking forward to seeing what they're gonna come up with. If they're doing a sponsored campaign, I'm always thinking like, oh, I want to see, how they think, what they putting out there,
True.
who they working with. Um,
That's a nice way to look at it. Yeah.
and yeah, and always try to support that as well, because obviously we all need money to survive somehow. And yes, I think there are certain limits. If you're a food blogger and or food photographer, and all of the sudden I see on your feed an advert for a shower gel, that's gonna confuse me. That's gonna make me think like it's maybe a little bit cringy, if you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
you always have to think like, well, it's just a person, it's just a human being on the other side who's just trying to make the ends meet, and good for them. But I think there is, I'm trying to be very conscious of who I work with to make sure that that is gonna work with my audience as well, if that makes sense. So you
Yeah.
won't see a shower gel on my Instagram, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
um but yeah, I think sponsored content is a great way of, of making money as well. And
Yeah.
if it's a brand that is in line with your core values and your brand values, it's great. If it's
Yeah.
not, then I probably would not go for it. But hey ho, everyone is different. If you wanna, if you want to put shower jelly out there, then go for it.
Yeah, special.
um,
Yeah,
hmm.
awesome. Okay, great.
So yeah.
So, last but not least, where can the listeners find you, Anna?
Oh, well, you can find me on my Instagram, Anna underscore Wierzbinska, which is probably the most difficult handle you've ever seen. Um, but you can also find me on my blog, which is annabanana.co. So I try to post weekly recipes on my blog. And yeah, I'm also on Pinterest. But I think Instagram and my website are my main places I hang out
Yeah.
at.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing so many wonderful things, Anna. It was such a
Oh, you're
pleasure listening to
welcome.
you.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks for having me.